What's happening, everybody, on this Thursday, May 29th, 2025? My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning into Loud Majority Live here, rumble.com/LFATV, wherever it is you're watching. Make sure you go on over and subscribe over there because we got the best news coverage anywhere in the world right now. Rumble.com/LFATV. We are awaiting a White House press briefing from Karoline Leavitt, where I'm sure she will have plenty to say. Plenty to say as the Dow was up today, the Dow was down today. We've got market volatility going all over the place following a second judge coming out against President Trump's tariffs. It's good to know that the president is unable to negotiate foreign policy because some judge in Topeka, Kansas thinks that he rules the roost. Almost no point in even having a president when you've got activist judges. Also, some new information about the Seattle mayor who sided with Antifa and a gaggle of ugly people over a bunch of Christians having a concert in one of their parks. Turns out he's an awful person. He's an awful, awful human being. Also, President Trump going after the America's elite institutions. And I got a feeling I'm going to roll the dice. I got a feeling this is going to be another 80-20 issue for the president, both because of geography and because of the obvious class warfare we are in the middle of. But as we get started, guys, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you share the video out wherever it may be. Karoline Leavitt, we are awaiting her any moment now. We are awaiting her any moment now. The White House is all queued up and ready to go. Let me, yep, all queued up and ready to go. Looks like the door's opening any minute. So, guys, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place before we get rocking, before we get rolling. Head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. I don't think I've ever showed you guys this before. For all of our pet-friendly people. We got some pet stuff over at. Why is that so damn big? Hold on a minute. Check this out. Check this out. Let me make that a little bit smaller for all of our pet-friendly people. You guys can go to loudmajorityusa.com and get all of your Trump bandanas, your Trump doggy shirts. Look at all of this stuff. Make sure you have the most MAGA dog in the world. Also, you can get a Loud Majority bandana. Giddy up, let's go. We got some Loud Majority dogs here. You guys can pick those up. Go to loudmajorityusa.com and use promo code RUMBLE to get 20% off everything on the website. That's promo code RUMBLE to get 20% off everything on the website. So, as we await the press briefing with Karoline Leavitt, let's jump in because yesterday we talked about Bruce Harrell, the mayor of Seattle, as I alluded to in the opening. He decided that he was going to side with the radical Antifa members, the radical trans-Tifa members, the gaggle of ugly people who decided to interrupt a Christian concert in Seattle. Well, it turns out, this Bruce Harrell is a pretty awful person. Now, I want to be clear. I am not somebody who normally would judge a person based on a sole act done 30 years ago. 30 years ago, if you committed some sort of nonviolent drug offense, maybe you got yourself into some bad ways, you got yourself into some addiction, you got in deep with some people on some money. People get themselves into bad ways. I got no problem with that. However, it's a little bit different if you, in 1996, you were arrested for pulling a gun on a pregnant woman over a parking spot. Yeah, that's right. That happened. Newly uncovered records, this is from the Post-Millennial, surfaced earlier this year on a long-forgotten 1996 arrest of Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell involving weapons and assault charges during a late-night altercation outside of a casino in Iowa. While the case was dismissed months later, details of the incident are drawing renewed scrutiny amid Harrell's demonization of local Christians and his support for Antifa. First reported by KUOW on the night of September 27, 1996, then Omaha resident Bruce Harrell. Why do cities elect mayors of people that aren't from there? We did that here in New York. We picked a guy from Boston. And it turns out he was a gigantic communist. Why do people do that? I don't understand this. A young attorney recently appointed to a controversial housing authority board was involved in a parking dispute outside of the Ameristar Casino in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Harrell and Rose Sanchez, one of the individuals involved, agree on several basic facts. Both parties arrived at the same time and disputed over a parking spot. Where the accounts diverge is what happens next. Rose Sanchez recalls Harrell in a red Jeep Grand Cherokee slowly driving past her and her husband Jose and her mother, pointing a handgun at them and confronting them over a parking spot, saying we felt threatened. All we did was pull into a parking spot. Now, I want to be clear. I am from New York. So the idea of someone being shot and killed over a parking spot is not out of the realm of possibility to me. It just isn't. People die over a lot less here in New York. If you've ever parked outside of Yankee Stadium, you know exactly what I'm talking about. However, outside of a casino in Iowa, something tells me there were plenty of parking spots for this absolute lunatic. Harold acknowledges displaying a firearm, but denies pointing it at anyone. I'm not sure what the hell that means. I'm not sure what that means. How do you display a firearm at someone but not point it at them? In contemporary media interviews and statements to the outlet, he claimed the Sanchez's may have mistaken his watch or a phone for a gun. At that time, Harold told reporters he had been carrying a weapon for protection due to death threats he had after receiving his nomination to the Housing Board. It was not common for people to carry portable phones in 1996. Yeah. Now, how many people had phones the size of handguns in 1996? Everybody remembers the Nokia brick. Remember those things? They were indestructible. They had like one game on it. It took you 45 minutes to send a text message. We all remember those. So he says that he displayed his firearm but didn't point it at anyone. Does that mean that, like, I got a remote here, that he, like, held up, he was waving it in the air but didn't point it? He was just like, I don't know what the hell that means. But it turns out, if you're going to shoot somebody over a parking spot in a casino, where I'm sure there were plenty of parking spots, I'm sure it's not the first time you've displayed your firearm at somebody over stupid reasons. But Seattle, you did it to yourself. You did it to yourself. At this point, the city of Seattle would be better off if they nominated Courtney Love to be their mayor than some of the people they've had over the course of the last several years. Casino security was alerted and law enforcement responded at about 12:30 in the morning. Harrell initially downplayed it, but the subsequent search of the vehicle revealed an unloaded .25 caliber Raven semi-automatic pistol and a clip with 4 bullets. What a weak-ass gun. 4 bullets in a clip? Come on, bro. What are we doing here? 10 hours after his arrest, Harrell withdrew his name from consideration for the Housing Authority post. At the time, Omaha Mayor Hal Dobbs, chief of staff, attributed the decision to the incident. So, he was so innocent that he withdrew his position from a housing board. Now, I want to be clear. Every housing board that has ever existed on planet Earth has been a cushy gig that you end up putting your feet up at. But I guess it was too good to be true for Mr. Harrell. Guys, we're going to keep rocking and rolling here. We're going to, once again, we are awaiting the White House press briefing with Karoline Leavitt. I can't wait to hear what she's got to say on the tariff issues plaguing the Trump administration with many of these federal judges. But before we keep rocking and rolling here, guys, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. In just a minute, when we come back from the break, I'm going to show you one of the funniest things I think I've ever heard in my entire life. There may be a newcomer in the 2028 presidential run. President Trump has only been in office for, what, 130 days? And people are already thinking about running for president. We've heard names before. We've heard AOC, we've heard Jasmine Crockett, we've heard Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Stephen A. Smith, Mark Cuban. But there's a new name. A new name to that list before we get to that Old Glory Bank.
When big banks decide who gets access to America's financial systems and who doesn't, who do you think gets left out? Middle Americans who proudly wave their pro-America values. Cancel culture in banking is corrosive. It limits your participation in a vibrant, free market economy. Fortunately, you can fight back. You now have the opportunity to invest in the bank that's investing in a fair American banking system, one based in freedom. Ownership in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank, is here. Old Glory Bank is a full-service FDIC-insured bank that's the alternative to overreaching, un-American big banks. We stand for privacy, security, and liberty. We stand for freedom, family, faith, and the flag. We stand for all the values you stand for, and for the values big banks can't stand. So help keep banking in the hands of Main Street, not Wall Street. To invest in Old Glory Bank, go to oldglorybank.com.
Guys, switching banks has never been easier, particularly when you have an option like Old Glory Bank. Guys, head on over to oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. So let's play a little game, all right? I will give away a free Loud Majority t-shirt to anybody who can guess who the new person considering running for president is. Chat, let me see you, babe. Let me see you. I'll send you a free Loud Majority shirt if you can guess who I'm going to show next. I promise you, like a bad ex-girlfriend, this person will not go away, no matter how hard we want him to, no matter how badly nobody watches. Let's see if the chat can come up with who it is. Let's see, George Clooney. No, not George. Not George. Buttigieg, no. Not Tampon Tim, no. Let's see, who is going to get it? Somebody's going to get it. Somebody's going to get it. Nope, not Jasmine Crockett. Not Jasmine Crockett. What up, Chris? Soros? No, George Soros is like 80 years old. Tim Freeman says Eric Swalwell. No, I promise you, the person I'm about to play is exceedingly worse than all of them. Everyone, we got LeBron, Liz Warren. Guys, I promise you, you're not even in the realm. Bernie, Phil Murphy, AOC, no, Hillary, governor of Pennsylvania. No, he'd probably be the most normal one. Out of Rosie don't even live in the country anymore. Joe Scarborough, no, wow. I cannot believe no one is getting it. I cannot believe that no one is getting it. This is wild. Y'all ready for this? Bring on your possible 2028 nominee, Jim Acosta.
Let me ask you about the ICE stuff, because, I mean, I have been going off on this on my show. To me, it's not America when ICE agents can show up in masks, sweep people up off the street, send them out of the country without due process, put them in these facilities, and we don't even know what's happening inside these facilities. So, of course, it makes sense that members of Congress would want to go visit one of these ICE facilities and say, okay, what's going on here? We're members of Congress. We represent the people. We want to know what's going on here. And then there's this scuffle where they're giving these members of Congress a hard time. And I'm worried about folks like yourself, Congresswoman, because I have to assume that, you know, of course they would like to arrest you and some of the others who are more outspoken in the House. That's just me thinking that.
No, you're absolutely right. It's interesting because my deputy chief, who's quite young, still has his grandmother, who he calls this particular one Nene.
Oh, guys, we'll get to the rest of the clip in just a minute. Here is, I promise you, this is far more entertaining. Here is the press secretary, Karoline Leavitt.
Imposed universal tariffs and reciprocal tariffs on Liberation Day to address the extraordinary threat to our national security and economy posed by large and persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficits. The United States has run a trade deficit of goods every year since 1975. In 2024, our trade deficit in goods exceeded $1 trillion. Everybody agrees this is unacceptable. President Trump is delivering on his promise to fix this problem, and he has taken a long overdue and much needed bold stance for American workers after decades of our manufacturing base being hollowed out. The president's rationale for imposing these powerful tariffs was legally sound and grounded in common sense. President Trump correctly believes that America cannot function safely long-term if we are unable to scale advanced domestic manufacturing capacity, have our own secure critical supply chains, and our defense industrial base is dependent on foreign adversaries. 3 judges of the U.S. Court of International Trade disagreed and brazenly abused their judicial power to usurp the authority of President Trump to stop him from carrying out the mandate that the American people gave him. These judges failed to acknowledge that the President of the United States has core foreign affairs powers and authority given to him by Congress to protect the United States economy and national security. Congress had created the National Emergency Act to provide the congressional framework to strike down improper IEEPA use, and any questions over whether President Trump improperly imposed these IEEPA tariffs were already adjudicated in Congress following Liberation Day. Congress firmly rejected an effort led by Senator Rand Paul and Democrats to terminate the president's reciprocal tariffs. The courts should have no role here. There is a troubling and dangerous trend of unelected judges inserting themselves into the presidential decision-making process. America cannot function if President Trump, or any other president for that matter, has their sensitive diplomatic or trade negotiations railroaded by activist judges. President Trump is in the process of rebalancing America's trading agreements with the entire world, bringing tens of billions of dollars in tariff revenues to our country, and finally ending the United States of America from being ripped off. These judges are threatening to undermine the credibility of the United States on the world stage. The administration has already filed an emergency motion for a stay pending appeal and an immediate administrative stay to strike down this egregious decision. But ultimately, the Supreme Court must put an end to this for the sake of our Constitution and our country. With Congress returning next week, it's critical that Senate Republicans maintain the momentum and quickly pass the One Big Beautiful Bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill will truly make America safe and prosperous. The One Big Beautiful Bill includes the largest border security investment ever. That's why the law enforcement groups are lining up to encourage its swift passage. The National Fraternal Order of Police, the largest police union in the country, just endorsed key provisions of the bill. The FOP president announced their strong support, saying the One Big Beautiful Bill Act is more than legislation. It is a promise kept to the public safety officers across the country and a bold step toward an economy that respects, rewards, and uplifts the people who keep it safe. And the National Border Patrol Council, which represents nearly 20,000 Border Patrol agents, hailed the legislation as well. The group's president said this legislation provides a once-in-a-generation investment in the border security of our great country and will make America safer. The One Big Beautiful Bill will guarantee we can permanently have the safest, strongest, and most secure immigration system in American history. I also want to take the opportunity to debunk some false claims that have been circulating in the press about this bill. The blatantly wrong claim that the One Big Beautiful Bill increases the deficit is based on the Congressional Budget Office and other scorekeepers who use shoddy assumptions and have historically been terrible at forecasting across Democrat and Republican administrations alike. For example, just before Congress enacted the original Trump tax cuts at the end of 2017, the same CBO projected that growth would average a mere 1.9% over the next 10 years. However, by 2019, actual growth had surged to 3.4% once the Trump tax cuts went into effect, exceeding the CBO forecast by nearly 2 full percentage points. The CBO's latest forecast makes the same anemic growth assumptions as they did in 2017, missing the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill. The CBO assumes long-term GDP growth of an anemic 1.8%, and that is absurd. The American economy is going to boom like never before after the One Big Beautiful Bill is passed. The largest middle-class tax cut in history, massive deregulation, and the most aggressive domestic energy exploration ever will fuel small businesses, further boost private investment, increase workers' wages, and supercharge economic growth. The Council of Economic Advisors has factored in the effects of all these pro-growth policies and estimated in their own analysis that growth will average 3% in the long run after the One Big Beautiful Bill is passed, which is nearly double the ridiculous CBO projection. This higher growth would result in $4.1 trillion in additional revenue over the next 10 years. Between the common sense spending reforms contained in the One Big Beautiful Bill and the robust economic growth that will be generated as a result of it, there will be no increase to the deficit. The same analysis from the CEA shows just how this historic package will unleash prosperity and ignite a blue-collar boom across America. But if the radical Democrats get their way and the One Big Beautiful Bill does not pass, Americans will face a whopping $4 trillion tax hike. This is unacceptable to President Trump. President Trump will not allow Democrats to massively raise Americans' taxes. Senate Republicans must get this bill passed. Failure is not an option. The American people are counting on Republicans to deliver. In other news, despite all the doom casting from the media, Americans are growing more and more optimistic about the economy under this president. Consumer confidence surged in May with the biggest monthly jump in 4 years, smashing expectations. According to the release from the Consumer Confidence Index, the increase in confidence was broad-based across all age groups, income groups, and political affiliations. Our country is clearly heading in the right direction under President Trump's bold leadership. For the first time in history of Rasmussen polling, a majority of Americans believe the country is on the right track. It's unsurprising because the president is fulfilling the promises he made to the American people. Here in our new media seat today, we have the editor-in-chief of The Federalist, Mollie Hemingway. The Federalist is led by Mollie and Sean Davis and provides fearless journalism and coverage of politics and culture to millions of readers all over the world. Thank you for being here, Mollie, and why don't you please kick us off?
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
In the first Trump administration, there was an effort to stymie the agenda of Trump through the Russia collusion hoax perpetuated by many people in the media, including some people seated here, or the media outlets they represent, and other Democrats as well. The second Trump administration, to reference what you said at the beginning, seems to be subject to an effort to stymie the agenda using rogue lower court judges. You mentioned that the Supreme Court could and should do something to rein in these lower court judges. Also, Congress could do something about it, but they don't seem terribly interested in it. It also seems there's not much of an actual coordinated effort from this White House to take and tackle this effort from judges, Democrats and other people using these judges to stymie the agenda. Is there an actual effort by this White House to tackle this issue in a comprehensive way, and if so, what is it?
There is an effort by this administration to tackle these rogue judges and the injunctions and the blockades that we have faced in our broken judicial system in every case. I mean, we have seen time and time again these lower district court judges ruling against this administration in the president's basic executive authority and powers. And this administration is fighting every single one of those battles in court, including already the block that came down from the tariff court, the IEPA court last night. And as on my way out here to the briefing room, I understand that there was another district court judge right here in Washington, D.C. who ruled against the president's tariff power. And I will get to the heart of your question, and I'm glad that we are addressing this in the room today, because nationwide injunctions ordered against the first Trump administration, Trump 1.0, account for more than half of the injunctions issued in this country since 1963. And President Trump had more injunctions in one full month of office in February than Joe Biden had in 3 years. And let me roll through some of these radical injunctions to paint the picture for the American people at home. These are not just talking points. These are real judges in the court of law who are trying to block the president's power and the policies that he was elected to enact. For example, a court ordered the Trump administration to return already deported terrorist aliens back to the United States. A court has ruled the Trump administration can't even temporarily pause our refugee programs. Courts prohibited the Trump administration from eliminating federal funding for child transgender surgery and mutilation, a practice that the American people overwhelmingly reject. A court also held that the Trump administration could not ban people experiencing gender dysphoria or mental health issues from serving in the military. Ridiculous. Courts prohibited the removal of transgender women from women's prisons despite potential physical harm to real women in those prisons, biological women. A Northern District of California judge issued an absurd ruling that the president cannot fire people within the executive branch without Congress passing a bill, even though Congress has expressly authorized the president through the Office of Personnel Management to authorize reductions in force across agencies. A court also ordered the Trump administration to rehire thousands of already fired employees in several cases. A federal judge blocked the Trump administration from defunding the Department of Education, another signature campaign promise that this president has the power to implement. Courts ordered the Trump administration could not eliminate funding for illegal DEI programs, hence the word illegal. These are illegal programs to begin with, and now the courts are trying to say this president can't roll them back. And a district court judge prohibited the president from issuing any categorical funding freezes. And then another court ordered on top of that the administration makes $2 billion of payments in 36 hours. These are just a few of the ridiculous orders that we have seen from lower district court judges every day, and we hope that the Supreme Court will weigh in and rein them in.
But White House advisor Stephen Miller says it's judicial tyranny. Some people are calling it a judicial coup. You're saying you're responding to each and every one of these actions, efforts by these judges to delay or thwart the implementation of the agenda. But is there going to be anything more than that, or is it just going to let this operation continue, even though it could delay everything for years until the presidency is over?
The administration is operating under the directive given to from the president that we need to comply with the court's orders. He's made that very clear, but we're going to fight them in court, and we're going to win on the merits of these cases because we know we are acting within the president's legal and executive authorities. And thanks for being here. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Question on tariffs, but first actually some foreign policy news, some breaking news. Some local Israeli media is reporting that Prime Minister Netanyahu told hostage families that he's accepted a 60-day truce offer. So can you confirm, have Israel and Hamas agreed to a truce?
I can confirm that Special Envoy Witkoff and the president submitted a ceasefire proposal to Hamas that Israel backed and supported. Israel signed off on this proposal before it was sent to Hamas. I can also confirm that those discussions are continuing, and we hope that a ceasefire in Gaza will take place so we can return all of the hostages home, and that's been a priority from this administration from the beginning. I won't comment further as we are in the midst of this right now.
So to be clear, you don't know if Hamas has accepted it yet?
Not to my knowledge, but certainly if that becomes the case and this ceasefire goes into effect, you'll hear it directly from myself, the president, or Special Envoy Witkoff.
On tariffs, Kevin Hassett earlier this morning, he brushed off a legal ruling, called it a hiccup, and he said that trade deal negotiations would continue. Why would other countries continue these trade deal negotiations given the ruling?
Because other countries around the world have faith in the negotiator-in-chief, President Donald J. Trump. And they also probably see how ridiculous this ruling is, and they understand that the administration is going to win, and we intend to win. We already filed an emergency appeal. We expect to fight this battle all the way to the Supreme Court. These other countries should also know, and they do know, that the president reserves other tariff authorities, Section 232, for example, to ensure that America's interests are being restored around the world. But I can confirm that our ambassador for trade, Jamison Greer, already heard from countries around the world this morning who said they intend to continue with these negotiations. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. So many of the president's plans right now are being blocked by courts. If the courts are going to be the ones who are shaping policy, does the president wish he would have just become a judge instead?
I think the president would take this job over being a judge, and certainly the president is acting within his authority. He wishes judges would do the same.
But so the courts are basically telling you guys they think that the White House's policies, the president's policies, are in some way against the law. So why can't President Trump ask the Republicans that control the House and the Republicans that control the Senate just to make a new law?
Well, these laws have already been granted to the president by the Constitution and by laws that have been previously passed. I'll give you another example. For instance, we've been blocked in court for the revocation of visas from individuals who have the privilege of studying in the United States of America. Secretary of State Rubio has simply used his authority to revoke those visas, to revoke that privilege, and we've seen the courts try to block that. So if these judges want to be the Secretary of State or they want to be the president, they can run for office themselves. It should be the other way around. But all of the actions the president has taken rely on legal authorities that have already been granted to him by our nation's existing laws.
And on a different topic, there are some folks in President Biden's inner circle who are now in talks with Republicans in Congress to give interviews about how they may have handled President Biden's decline. Is the president satisfied with aides only sitting for these transcribed interviews, or would he also like to see some kind of testimony from the former First Lady, Dr. Biden?
I think frankly, the former First Lady should certainly speak up about what she saw in regards to her husband and when she saw it and what she knew. Because I think anybody looking, again, at the videos and photo evidence of Joe Biden with your own eyes and a little bit of common sense can see this was a clear cover-up. And Jill Biden was certainly complicit in that cover-up. There's documentation, video evidence of her clearly shielding her husband away from the cameras. They were just on The View last week. She was saying everything is fine. She's still lying to the American people. She still thinks the American public are so stupid that they're going to believe her lies. And frankly, it's insulting, and she needs to answer for it. Ouija.
Thank you, Caroline. President Trump was asked what he thought about Elon Musk's claim that the big, beautiful bill increases the budget deficit and undermines the work of DOGE. And the president didn't actually comment on those remarks. He just talked about the need to support the bill. So what does the president think about what Elon Musk said?
Well, the president is very proud of the one big beautiful bill, and he wants to see it pass. He wants the Senate to get to work on it and send it to his desk as quickly as possible. Of course, as you know, Elon Musk announced last night his departure as an official special government employee from the Trump administration. We thank him for his service. We thank him for getting DOGE off of the ground, and the efforts to cut waste, fraud, and abuse will continue.
So he doesn't have any comment about Musk saying it adds to the deficit and it undermines all his work?
The president commented on this. I commented on it. I told you that this bill saves $1.6 trillion according to the Council of Economic Advisors and the analyses that the president believes in. So he gave a comment. I gave a comment. Just because you don't like that comment doesn't mean it's not a comment. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Back on trade, I know you said the White House is going to fight this ruling in court. Is the administration actively reviewing other avenues, other options to carry out the president's trade policy?
The president's trade policy will continue. We will comply with the court orders, but yes, the president has other legal authorities where he can implement tariffs. However, it does not dispute the fact that the president was right to declare a national emergency when it came to fentanyl and when it came to our crippling deficits and the lack of critical supply chains here at home. That is the reasoning for the president's tariffs. And the court didn't dispute those facts, by the way. And there have been other courts that have reaffirmed the president's position. In fact, a ruling in federal court earlier this month shows that the administration is in the right, said we will win on appeal. A federal district judge in Florida ruled that IEEPA, in fact, does grant the president the authority to unilaterally impose tariffs. And 20 years ago, I will add, they are not a court, the New York Times editorial board responded to the January 2005 trade deficit of $58.3 billion by writing an editorial entitled Dangerous Deficits. And since then, our trade deficit has more than doubled. The U.S. trade deficit in January totaled a whopping $131.4 billion. So people on both sides of the aisle, pundits, lawyers, legal scholars, politicians have all agreed that it is a national emergency, our trade deficits and our lack of critical supply chains here at home. It's just President Trump was the first president to actually act on it to restore that wealth and that prosperity to the United States of America. And it's very unfortunate that the courts are now blocking his attempts to do that.
Has the administration then reached the point where you are actually asking your economic advisors to start reviewing other avenues to implement the president's trade policy, or do you want to just see this legal process take place for now?
We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We are doing both. Josh.
The Fed says the president met with the Fed chair earlier today. I'm wondering if you can give us any readout of that meeting. The Fed also says that they discussed the economy. I imagine the president might have shared views on rates as well, but what can you share with us?
I can share with you that we saw, the president and I both saw the statement that the Fed put out after the meeting. That statement is correct. However, the president did say that he believes the Fed chair is making a mistake by not lowering interest rates, which is putting us at an economic disadvantage to China and other countries. And the president's been very vocal about that, both publicly and now I can reveal privately as well.
Did he speak at all about his plans for that position, but whether he would seek to move Jay Powell out of that position or keep him in until his term ends?
No.
Okay.
Kristen.
Ask very quickly on the tariff question. You mentioned Section 232 earlier. Are you suggesting that you might sort of speed up some of the existing 232 investigations? Or are you talking potentially using 232 as a replacement power if this ruling doesn't go your way? Of course, you hope it does.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just simply stating the fact that the president has other legal authorities he can use to implement tariffs, and the administration is willing to use those. As you know, we already have applied Section 232 tariffs on specific industries.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
President Trump said that he needed 1.5 to 2 weeks to determine whether or not he believed Vladimir Putin wanted peace. he has been in office now for 4 months. What does he believe is going to happen in the next 1.5 to 2 weeks that would change his opinion?
Well, it is my understanding and it is our hope that Russia and Ukraine will engage in direct talks and negotiations next week in Istanbul, and we believe that meeting is going to take place, and that is a meeting the president encouraged and urged for these two sides to come together and negotiate directly. And the president has been clear from the very beginning of this conflict that he wants to see this conflict solved on the negotiating table, not on the battlefield, and he's told that to both leaders, again, both publicly and privately. So hopefully next week it will move the ball forward in this.
Is the United States going to participate in those conversations?
We will let you know if the president plans to send a representative. I'm not tracking that at this time. Kelly in the back.
Thanks, Caroline.
Sure.
I wanted to just clarify once and for all the Qatari jet, the sale, or the gift, because the Qatari government is asking the U.S. to clarify that the jet's pending transfer was initiated by the Trump administration. So is this something that the White House is going to do?
The amount of questions we've received, and we've been incredibly clear, and I have answered this, the president has answered this, the Department of Defense has answered this. This is a government-to-government gift transfer from the Qataris to the Department of Defense, to the United States Air Force. It is now in their hands, and for further details on where that stands, I would defer you to the Department of Defense and the United States Air Force. I have nothing more for you on that. Deanna.
Thanks, Caroline. 2 questions, one on Big Beautiful Bill, one on immigration.
Sure.
Yesterday, Trump said, we will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. Wondering if you could, share any specifics on that. And in immigration, do you know how many illegal migrants have taken Trump's voucher program so far and have deported themselves?
I believe it's in the thousands of those who have chosen the easier route of self-deportation, and we certainly encourage all illegal aliens who are present within our homeland to take that option. It's a much more pleasant option than being deported, and we will deport you if you're here illegally. That's our intention. As for the first question, what the president was speaking about is how this is a great bill. However, it has come as a result of a hard negotiation. It's difficult to get things done on Capitol Hill, but thanks to President Trump, this bill is moving in the right direction. And thanks to House Republicans and the leadership over there as well, who did a great job mediating both sides of the caucus to move this bill to the Senate. And now the president, again, has told his friends on the Senate side and is already engaged in those conversations to get that bill back to his desk as soon as possible. Sure.
Has this administration been briefed about the incident that happened in Gaza on Tuesday during the rollout of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution of aid to Palestinians there? And should there be a ceasefire, will this administration continue to rely on this foundation for the distribution of aid to civilians?
Are you referring, what incident are you referring to?
Tuesday,
when the aid was rolled out to Gaza for the first time in many months, and meals and food was given to hungry people, thanks to President Trump. Yes, we were briefed on that plan. The president was the reason that aid went into Gaza, and he got the Israelis to support that plan. And I would add that the previous administration rejected such a plan to ensure that these starving and devastated people in the Gaza Strip were given humanitarian aid and assistance. And it was the previous administration that tried to build this pier, if you all remember it. It was brought to my attention this morning, and I thought that's a good point. Why don't I bring that up? Because there's been so much criticism. In fact, it was on the front page of a newspaper this morning about the criticism for this president having a humanitarian heart and giving people badly needed food and supplies. Nobody wanted to talk about how the previous administration failed in that endeavor. They built this pier that cost $230 million. It lasted about 20 days, and more than 60 U.S. service members were injured, as a part of this floating aid pier that did nothing for the people of Gaza. The president is opening up his humanitarian heart to get aid into the region while his team simultaneously negotiates a ceasefire and the return of all hostages. We are moving the ball forward in a positive direction for all people. The president wants to see peace for all people. Jasmine.
Thanks so much, Caroline. A Notice investigation found that the Hallmark Maha Commission report that was released last week cites studies that appear to not exist. We know that because in part we reached out to some of the listed authors who said that they didn't write the studies cited. So I want to ask, does the White House have confidence that the information coming from HHS can be trusted?
Yes, we have complete confidence in Secretary Kennedy and his team at HHS. I understand there were some formatting issues with the Maha report that are being addressed, and the report will be updated, but it does not negate the substance of the report, which, as you know, is one of the most transformative health reports that has ever been released by the federal government and is backed on good science that has never been recognized by the federal government.
Follow-up, can you talk about what tools or research goes into production of these kinds of reports? For instance, is it AI that's used to put together these reports now?
I can't speak to that. I would defer you to the Department of Health and Human Services. What I know is just what I told you. Lindsay.
Caroline. Many small businesses that we've talked to since the tariffs have been in place have said what would really help them is a long-term plan so that they can catch up. In light of what's happened now, this trade war with the courts, how will that impact this 90-day window? Will you guys be adjusting that? And how can you help relieve some of these small businesses?
Well, I would say nobody understands the needs of business owners, and nobody has the backs of our small business community more than President Donald J. Trump. He believes, I've heard him talk about this with small business owners himself, that small businesses are truly the backbone of our American economy. And that's why the president is supporting the One Big Beautiful Bill. So for those you spoke to who are asking for a long-term plan, big tax cuts are coming their way. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime for their workers, more money in their pockets. Their bottom lines will be larger. They can pay their people more. Wages are going to go up. Inflation will continue to come down. We've already seen energy prices plummeting as a result of this president's economic and energy agenda that he has been implementing across the federal government, reducing burdensome regulation. All of that is good news for small business owners across the country. That's why they strongly support the president, and that's the Trump economic plan that is underway. And again, you're emphasizing, I believe, the need to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill, and the president wants to see that happen. Sure.
Will you still work within that 90-day window for these trade negotiations? Does that still stand?
Again, as far as we're concerned, our trade agenda is moving forward, and we've already heard from countries around the world today who will continue to negotiate in good faith with the United States so we can cut good trade deals on behalf of the American people, and we fully expect to win this case in court. Sure.
On Golden Dome, the president put out this number of $61 billion. How did he arrive at that? Is that the number it will cost to protect Canada, and is it negotiable, or where did it come from?
I can certainly ask the president, and I can check in with our research team, and we'll get you the facts on that number. But the Golden Dome is certainly a significant investment in our nation's national security and homeland security to protect Americans, all of you in this room, from future threats.
Any readout on have the Canadians been talking in good faith about paying to be in it? I know they expressed some interest.
Well, the president has certainly expressed to the Canadians how we are essentially subsidizing their national defense. He brought it up in his meeting with their new leader here, and as you know, we'll be traveling to Canada next month for the G7, so I expect that topic of discussion to come up on that trip as well. Sure.
Hi, thanks, Caroline. There was a May Day USA rally in Seattle that happened over the weekend that developed into some protests and riots. The Seattle Mayor Harrell said that it was a far-right rally held here to provoke a reaction by promoting beliefs that are inherently opposed to our city's values, which he defined as LGBT values. I know the FBI is looking into this, but has the president reached out to the mayor at all, asked him to apologize for this, and is this something that the administration would consider an example of anti-Christian bias?
I'm not aware of that case. I know the FBI is looking into it, but I'm not aware of any phone calls the president may or may not have made to the mayor of that city.
And then on Doge, we know that Elon Musk is leaving. Do you have an updated leadership structure for who is leading the group? Is Russ Vought involved? And what is its new mission now, if any?
Well, the entire cabinet is involved, and I spoke to the president about it this morning, and the entire cabinet understands the need to cut government waste, fraud, and abuse, and each cabinet secretary at their respective agencies is committed to that. That's why they were working hand in hand with Elon Musk, and they'll continue to work with the respective Doge employees who have onboarded as political appointees at all of these agencies. So surely the mission of Doge will continue, and many Doge employees are now political appointees and employees of our government, and to the best of my knowledge, all of them intend to stay and continue this important work.
Is there a Doge leader taking the place of Mr. Musk?
Well, again, the Doge leaders are each and every member of the president's cabinet and the president himself, who is wholeheartedly committed to cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from our government. Michael.
Caroline, there's conflicting reports out of the Middle East right now. Saudi television network Al Arabiya is saying that Israel and Hamas have agreed to a 60-day ceasefire. Sources with Hamas are saying that has not been agreed to. If and when that does happen, will we expect to hear something from President Trump announcing that?
As I said earlier, yes, indeed. If there is an announcement to be made, it will come from the White House, the President, myself, or Special Envoy Witkoff.
Caroline, one big beautiful bill. The President says he's not happy with all aspects of it. What changes would he like to see be made, and can this bill be both big and beautiful?
It is a one big beautiful bill, as the name rings true, and the President, as I said, is currently working with his friends in the Senate who have some recommendations for the bill. Those negotiations and discussions are continuing, but the President's ultimate priority is to get this bill back to his desk for signature. And the President's priorities in this bill are non-negotiable in terms of the tax priorities he wants to see and the large tax cuts in the border investments that are currently in this bill. He is not going to allow them to go away for the American people. Sure, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about, has the President spoken to any of these foreign leaders about these agreements that have been reached, specifically the case of the United Kingdom that already has an agreement in place after this decision of the court in New York?
Has the President talked to foreign leaders about what?
About the court decision in New York.
Which court decision in New York?
The trade court.
Oh, the trade court decision. He did speak to the leader of Japan this morning, and he said that was a very good call and a good discussion. And as I said, the President's cabinet, Secretary Lutnick, Secretary Bessent, and Ambassador Jameson Greer have all been in touch with their counterparts in countries around the world to let them know the United States will still be at the negotiating table, and we still expect countries around the world to treat us fairly. Again, I will just close by saying that how ridiculous it is that we've been ripped off, our middle class has been hollowed out, our manufacturing base has left and gone overseas, jobs have been offshored, and now no court did anything about that. No court did anything about hundreds of thousands of people being put out of work, about thousands of factories being closed down, about our deficits going to dangerous levels, as the New York Times has said. But now a court is trying to stop a president from trying to correct those wrongs of the past. And this administration will continue to do that. It's a promise the president made to the American people, and it's a promise they elected him on. We will win this battle in court, and the president will implement his America First trade policies. Thank you, everyone.
Is the U.S. Steel situation tomorrow at the speech?
I can tell you the president greatly looks forward to going to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he will discuss this historic deal and discuss American jobs and American steel, and we hope to see you all there. Thanks, guys.
Alrighty, guys, that was Carolyn Levitt. Also, apparently just so you guys know, the volume is coming from the room. So I know some people said that it sounds kind of low. That's coming from the room. We'll send Carolyn a text, tell her to turn up the mic. Guys, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, share the video out all over the place. As we rock, as we roll, do me a favor, head on over to lfatv.us. It's lfatv.us. That's your home base, your mothership, your landing pad for all things LFA TV related. Check out the LFA TV store. And while you guys are there, consider becoming a monthly donor over here at LFA. This is user-generated content, and we can't do it without your help. Giddy up, let's go. Kevin, will you be getting the OMG in XL soon? We only have these for women. We only have these for women remaining. So, ladies, it is just for you. Unfortunately, I will double check and see, but I don't think there are any more men's sizes left, unfortunately. Just for the ladies. Because we like the ladies more. We just do. We love the ladies here at The Loud Majority. So one thing that wasn't brought up in and you guys get it at loudmajorityusa.com. It's actually half off for the ladies. So there you go. Bingo bango. One thing that wasn't brought up was the president's cuts to places like Harvard. Now, I've said it on the show before. I think radical anti-Semitism on college campuses is really bad. It is. There is a serious issue going on amongst our elite institutions. But President Trump has committed to taking the money that places like Harvard and Princeton and Yale and Dartmouth and Cornell get and putting them into trade schools. And I think this would go a long way in not only helping build up the idea of manufacturing in this country, but also help build the confidence of young men. Here is Monica Page from Turning Point USA talking about President Trump's plan to move the money to trade schools.
From its DEI directives to the rampant anti-Semitism on campus, Harvard has become the main target in President Trump's war on elite universities.
Billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard. How ridiculous is that?
But Harvard may just be the tip of the iceberg given the amount of federal funds given to Ivy League colleges and universities over the years. A deeper look into the amount of funding trade schools get versus elite institutions reveals a significant disparity. For context, federal funding for trade schools have been channeled through various initiatives from the Department of Education and the Department of Labor. President Trump knows this and has separately taken the steps to boost trade school programs to prepare Americans for the high-paying skilled trade jobs of the future.
Because of your trade policy, we're going to train people in trade craft, bring back trade craft to America so that people can work in these factories with great paying jobs, and we're going to train them. And we're going to remake the American dream.
But in recent years, approximately $1.9 billion in federal funding and special grants have supported trade schools and vocational programs across the country, helping boost academic, vocational, and technical skills developments for students in programs like welding, plumbing, healthcare, and much more. In contrast, elite colleges across the country, including those Ivy League schools like Harvard, receive around $60 billion annually in federal grants. That's 3 to 5 times more federal funding than all trade schools combined. A breakdown of these funds suggests trade schools receive around $200,000 each. Ivy League schools receive around $875 million to $1.2 billion each. Trade schools enroll around 2.5 million students annually, receiving an estimate of $760 per student. Ivy League schools serve roughly 150,000 students, both graduate and undergraduate, receiving an estimate of $46,000 to $66,000 per student. Given this information, coupled with the rising tensions with Harvard, President Trump has since floated redirecting approximately $3 billion from Harvard to trade schools, which could nearly triple annual trade school funding, addressing this significant gap.
And honestly, I think that is something that would be quite beneficial to the country. Now, obviously, for those of you from anywhere but the Northeast, I know you are not inundated with Ivy League schools. Unfortunately, me being here in New York, we, of course, are. Dartmouth being in New Hampshire, Harvard being in Boston, Brown in Providence, Yale being in New Haven, Columbia here in New York, Princeton in Princeton, New Jersey, UPenn in Philadelphia, and Cornell in upstate New York somewhere. You know, everything north of Westchester is Canada, unofficially. We all know that. So if you're from anywhere else in the country, it might benefit you in a very serious way if some of the money redirected from the Northeastern Ivy League elite institutions went into maybe your local trade school in Nebraska. Maybe, who knows, John Deere tractor repair schools. I think that would do a hell of a lot more for the country than art history majors over at Princeton. But how do the American people feel about this? How do the American people feel about this? Well, Harry Enton over at CNN has some interesting little nuggets. And it seems like Donald Trump has picked up another popular issue.
I think going into this, I think a lot of Americans thought that higher ed needed a nice kick in the rear end. What am I talking about here? Well, why don't we take a look at high confidence in higher education? You go back a decade ago, 57% of Americans had high confidence in higher education. Look at where we are now. That number has plummeted as of last year, down to 36%. We're talking about a 36-point drop among Republicans specifically. Get this, 68% of Americans said that higher education was on the wrong track. So it's a question of whether or not people agree with Trump's tactics, but they definitely agree with him on the idea that there is a problem with higher ed overall.
One thing you've heard from President Trump and many Republican allies for quite some time is accusing colleges and universities across the country of not being a friendly place for conservatives, if you will. How do the American public feel? Yeah, so, do colleges have a liberal bias? I think that's really the question here. And what we see in polling after polling after polling is that the plurality say yes. Overall, look at that, 45%
of Americans overall agree with the idea that colleges have a liberal bias. Just 24% disagree with that idea. Look among Republicans. Hello, 67% of Republicans agree that colleges have a liberal bias. This is why Donald Trump is so emphatic and so wanting to take on this fight, because he knows that Republicans hate universities, hate the administrations, believe they have a liberal bias, and in fact, the plurality of Americans overall agree with the idea, agree with Donald Trump, that colleges are in fact a place where bias reigns.
On President Trump targeting international students, are you seeing an impact of this? I mean, obviously it's early on, but so far?
Yeah, there's definitely been an impact on it. What are we talking about? So, webpage views for university courses from potential students abroad, right? This is from study portals. Get this, it is down 50% from potential international students from January 5th to the end of April. So a lot of potential international students who might be saying, hey, in the past I might want to come to America, saying, no, at this particular point, maybe I'm going to look elsewhere. Maybe I'm going to look at the United Kingdom, for example, because in the United States, we don't feel welcome.
It's great to see you, Harry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a shame. Look, if we took in less colleges from abroad, college prices would go down. Because here's what happens, and I want to be clear about this. This is and for my Long Islanders, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I went to a public college here on Long Island, Stony Brook University, one of the best schools in the SUNY system. And if you went to Geneseo, you're wrong. But one of the best schools in the SUNY system. It is flooded with foreign students. And foreign students, by the way, who drive Ferraris or Nissan Skylines or Honda 2000s, like gorgeous top-of-the-line vehicles. At the private schools that are not subject to the state university system where you may live, this influx of wealthy foreigners drives the price up for your student. Because if a college can get 500 wealthy foreigners whose parents will pay any amount of money to go to Princeton or Yale or UPenn or Cornell, now you've got to compete with that. Let's say you have a kid who's incredibly bright. Maybe they would do well going to MIT, but they're not going to be able to afford to go there because they're competing with rich foreign money. And I think that's time for that to end. Not to outblame me. I could do a whole damn show on foreign students taking up American spots in universities. But Will Johnson, the countdown's going on right now, guys. Head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. Ladies, get your OMG shirts half off. Giddy up. Let's go. Stay loud.